think that your brain is just fixed, it's just stuck, your abilities are as they are. For sure, all of us have different strengths and vulnerabilities, and things that go on for us can affect that. Trauma can affect it, mood disorders, depression and anxiety, also various neurodivergent things. So it can be things that happen to us or things that we are born with. But what's beautiful is that your brain is not just set in stone. We have the science of neuroplasticity to tell us that there is a lot of hope for change and improvement no matter what you're going through. So if you are ready to shatter some of these myths and develop really practical, cutting-edge ways to hack into your well-being and to live better, let's get into it. I would really love to stay connected with you. I very much appreciate you liking, commenting, even subscribing to the channel. And let's talk about neuroplasticity. So when we think about the brain, it's really common to imagine that it's sort of fixed. Hey, this is just the way I am. I just function in this way. And certainly as we live our lives, that's what our experience feels like. But there's some really amazing things that we can learn about neuroplasticity that can help us in our day-to-day have a lot of hope and develop resilience and maybe even unlock different feelings and different experiences in our life. So to illustrate a little bit of what neuroplasticity is, to illustrate how the brain can change according to the demands that we put on it, let's think about a study that was done nearly 25 years ago. In London, they have their black cabs. They're kind of, if you've ever seen movies or TVs, you've been to London, these kind of like famous looking black cabs. And the people that drive them have to undergo a training where they develop what's called the knowledge. And the knowledge is a very intense and deep understanding of what are some of the quickest ways to get around in this really ancient and complex city. This study looked at the brains of these black cab drivers as they went through their training and discovered that the areas of the brain that are involved in spatial awareness, so where we are in relationship A to B, like on a map, so to speak, our internal model of where we are, these areas became bigger as they went through their training. So in the brain, the posterior hippocampus, this area that is related a lot to memory and us knowing where we are in space, its function and its shape and its size improved as these people put these demands on their brain to work in a different way. As they demanded their brain to work in a different way, the brain responded by enlarging the areas that it needed to do its job. What's super fascinating as well is that people who had been black cab drivers for longer, the more experienced drivers, had even bigger hippocampus. So we know that the brain is constantly evolving according to how we use it. This research was seen as really amazing in terms of the insights it could give us into how just our day-to-day cognitive function can be improved, even for people who maybe are struggling with memory issues, Alzheimer's. And for us, it helps us to understand a little bit about what we're saying with neuroplasticity. Well, neuroplasticity just means neuro, brain, and plasticity, it changes. If there's a part of our brain or a function of our brain that we are not using as much, the brain is going to be really efficient and it's just not going to send as many signals to that area. Where if there's an area that we're using more signals are going to be sent there. The brain can also develop new neurons to beef up those areas that we're using more. So we can grow certain areas, but also it's almost like an electric conduit, like a wiring, but the more that you use it, the quicker and the stronger those little pathways get. Where bits that we don't use as much, those pathways get weaker and weaker and weaker. It's not that you don't have the ability to build them back up, but the brain is going to be really clever. What you need, what we use, we're going to build more into that, more neurons and more connections. The bits that we don't use, less connections. So why does this matter? We can all get trapped in certain habitual patterns. We can all feel really stuck, both in our mood, our behaviors, And everyone is getting a little bit older day by day, our memory. So whether those are issues, or even if it's something really intense, like let's say a neurodivergent issue like ADHD, neuroplasticity tells us that, well, if we work on the things that we need to have more skills at, we need to have more abilities in, the brain is going to respond. It's going to reward us by strengthening up those connections and beefing up those areas of the brain that we need to respond to our environment. So another study looked specifically at people with ADHD. This study was done around 2019. And with their participants, all of whom had ADHD, they used a computer program designed at improving their cognitive function with regards to attention and memory. So the computer program was challenging this and asking them to use it more and more and more. And they also found positive results. Both immediately, there was an increased ability to maintain attention, to maintain focus, but also long term, the brains were changing. They were increasing the amount of connections to the areas of the brain that were needed to pay attention and to maintain that focus. So this tells us that even with existing vulnerabilities, we have the power to change little by little the way that the brain works. And over time, this may create both functional, so the way the brain works, how the way it functions, and also structural differences that improve our well-being in our everyday tasks, our everyday life. So let's get into what you can do, sort of like hacking your nervous system, hacking your brain, and getting it to make some of the changes that you may want to see. For many of us, these changes revolve around attention and focus. Others might be more concerned with memory, maintaining our memory or keeping our memory healthy, or even improving it when we feel it start to decline, or also around mood. So depression, anxiety, these things have an effect on how our lives feel, also how our focus and our attention works, and the brain, not only with the connection we're talking about, but with the kind of chemicals that it creates, are often seen as some of the reasons why depression and anxiety are happening. And those are things we can hack into as well. Let's think about some ideas for things that you could start today, very practical stuff. One is, as if you watch my channel, you know is very near and dear to my heart, is our meditation and our mindfulness practices. Now, I don't want that to feel overwhelming. Certainly, if your mood is not feeling great and if your attention feels very difficult, then meditation can sound really challenging. But I'm not talking about making yourself sit down for 20 minutes at a time, eyes closed, and just being an instant meditator. I'm talking about taking it into your life in a really practical way. So that may mean taking perhaps a minute, 5 minutes even, to stop what you're doing and to focus your attention on the present moment. What is happening here and now? What you're asking your brain to do at that point in time, and why meditation is so powerful for our mental health generally, is you're again building those neurons, like our examples that we gave in the research, building those neurons, building those connections to the parts of the brain that are involved in maintaining and holding focus, attention, and awareness. Over time, that will help you in the day-to-day tasks that you need that for. Don't feel discouraged. It is very, very common at the beginning to, start a meditation practice and within 30 seconds, I can't do it. But maybe you did it for 10 seconds. Great. Maybe tomorrow it can be 15 seconds, and building, building, building. You can certainly use other things to assist with that focus. So although meditation, mindfulness, I love those things, you could also create something that's like an anchor to maintain your focus and your intention, and also to help with memory as well. So some of the key things that really help our brain is learning a new skill, learning a new hobby. It could be something fun. It doesn't have to be something important or something that other people value. Even something as simple as building something with your hands, creating something, molding a piece of clay, but doing it consistently, something artistic or learning a new instrument or a new language. These things are all going to be challenging your memory, challenging your attention, your focus. And when it comes to your mood, that little bit of challenge in your body and sometimes getting a good payoff is going to increase our dopamine, our serotonin, all those little bits of your brain that have an influence on mood are going to be fired up when you're learning something new. So it doesn't matter what it is. There's plenty of courses online. You could just like pick something fun. You could download an app to teach you a new language. You could look up a YouTube video on how to paint or draw or build something. You could even do something around your house that you've never done before, paint a wall or learn to fix something. All of these things are going to make your brain go into skills and abilities that maybe it hasn't used in a little while or are challenging, and is going to help to build those connections that you didn't have before. The other thing that can really help is physical movement. Movement directly impacts brain health. Not only does increased circulation, getting that blood to go to more parts of the body, including the brain, help to create new brain cells and keep the ones there really healthy. But also exercising helps with what they call neurogenesis. So that means creating new brain tissue where we need it. Exercise, moving is also really going to be helpful for your mood. You get those boost of feel-good hormones. Even if the exercise doesn't feel good, afterwards you're going to get a little boost of calming or happy hormones through your body. And over time, again, what your brain does once and again, it's going to do more. So if your brain gets used to releasing these feel-good hormones, it's going to keep doing it again and again. But physical activity will also help the sustaining of the existing neurons that are there, so maintaining your brain function, as well as helping the brain to grow in the areas that it needs through this production of brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is something that you get a boost of after physical activity. So it doesn't need to be a giant workout. It could just be a little bit more activity than what you would normally do. Again, a 5-minute walk, which you could incorporate your mindfulness and your meditation into, feeling what it is like to be outside, feeling the heat or the cold or the air, looking at trees, really being in the moment. And you're also getting this brain boost, this health that is going to be injected into your brain, keeping the existing tissue healthy and encouraging the new growth if that's needed. But let's also think about the emotional side. So we can certainly affect the way that the brain works by challenging thinking processes and how we use it. And this may be particularly helpful when we are feeling more depressed, more anxious, and those are the vulnerabilities that we notice in ourselves. Something called cognitive reappraisal. And all this means is notice how I think and second guess it. You're not telling yourself that you're wrong. You're not trying to convince yourself of some different way of thinking. We're just trying to develop a little bit of flexibility. So if you imagine that flexibility being like 2 different pathways in our brain, maybe we have this existing pathway that is always about this is wrong, this is bad, this is scary, this gives me anxiety. That pathway may be very strong. And maybe what we're doing is carving out a brand new pathway of neurons that's questioning, well, how scary is it? If it was scary, what would I do? Or when things feel really bad, really challenging yourself to find something to be grateful for. Whatever it is, it doesn't need to be a big thing. It could be some things very small. But as we're challenging, you're strengthening this other pathway. Internally, not only the physical neurons that are needed to work in a different way, but also all the brain chemicals that go along with that, the serotonin, the dopamine, all of those things that we need to feel good and feel connected are going to be encouraged in their production with those new connections. And lastly, let's think about self-care, how we sleep, how we eat, and what effect that has on our brain. Sleep, lack of sleep, these things are extremely common with our mood disorders, with our trauma, even with our neurodivergency, ADHD, and the like. And sleep Once it gets bad, your brain function is going to tank out with it. I would say that sleep is something that, although it's challenging, it may be easier to address that than maybe, say, changing your way of thinking. So how do we address our sleep? I'm going to link down below a channel that I really love that I always recommend to my clients when they're struggling with sleep that has a practice called Yoga Nidra. Now, you don't have to fall asleep with your Yoga Nidra, but it is going to help your brain to get into a more relaxed state. So the more that we do a thing, the more it's going to be able to build that capacity to do it. So if you're training your brain consistently, relax, calm down, get ready to sleep, eventually sleep will come. When we sleep, we get a lot of brain repair, we get a lot of health restored back to our brain, and we can feel that the next day, the next morning. We also need to think about the way that we eat. Your brain is a living, breathing thing. It needs nutrients to survive. Our omega-3s are really, really important. You can get those from things like fish, walnuts, flax seeds. The other things that are important are antioxidants, things like vitamin C you might get from berries or citrus fruits. Your B vitamins like B12, super, super important. You can get from leafy green things, you can get from animal products. All of your basic vitamins. Obviously, if these things are hard, like a multivitamin is maybe a good place to start, an easy place to start. But having a diet where your body is regularly getting these things is important, because this is related to another thing that is very linked with your brain, and that's your gut. So our gut is going to be a lot healthier when our diet is providing everything that we need. We're learning more and more and more about this relationship between the gut and the brain, between our mood and our gut. And although it's challenging maybe in busy lifestyle to get those healthy diet changes, again, start small. You don't need to change everything. Maybe just change one thing, add one thing in that will be healthy for you, and just start to make a slow evolution of changes from there. One thing that is maybe more simple to do is your hydration. Your brain is about 60% water, and even a small amount of dehydration causes a great amount of stress in your brain, in your nervous system. Dehydration increases the production of a lot of our stress hormones, or cortisol. We start to feel like we're in a fight or flight mode, and that can simply be because we have low hydration. So increasing the amount of water you drink, maybe choosing to drink your water first before you drink other kinds of drinks, or getting yourself some kind of bottle or container and committing that I'm going to drink so many of these a day so that you meet your body's needs for hydration is seriously going to impact not just how your brain functions, whether it can repair itself, but also the mood states that come to you more easily. Anxiety is going to feel a lot easier, a lot quicker to feel when the brain is dehydrated. So next steps, where from here? In order to make a success of this, you need to choose something that you can practically include into your life. So maybe choose just one or two things that would just be some small changes that you can introduce to challenge the way that your brain works, the way that you take care of your brain, and then to implement it consistently. So that can be somewhat of a challenge as well. But it's okay, be easy with yourself. Maybe start today. I would say track or write down how well you do and aim for at least a couple weeks of being consistent. If you fall off, that's a learning experience as well. Just go into it with an open mind and curiosity. What stopped me on this day, or what got in the way? And then you can address it the next day. And then once you're consistent for a bit, experiment. What works for one person may not work for you. And always, always, always see setbacks, see inconsistency as an opportunity to learn. Don't be mean to yourself. Don't be critical of yourself. Just look at it as, what happened there? I had intended to do this, and then that happened. What went on, and what can I take from it? As always, I'm here to support you. Reach out if needed. If it doesn't feel okay to put it in the comments, feel free to send me a direct message. My email is linked down below. I'll also link the little bits of research that I referenced in case you're curious to learn more. And until next time, be well.